Okay, test mic, 1, 2, 3, test mic. Test, 1, 2, 3, mic, test. Hello, test mic. Okay, good. Okay, those who are view or online, can you hear me? By the way, I have a new microphone. You congratulate me. Nagpa-shopee gid ko ani para madungan kanyo og maayo.
Sana
Can you
all
hear
si
me
sir na
online?
nanay mic. Sana all nanay mic eh,
Loud
sir.
and clear, sir. Loud
Loud
and
and
clear.
clear. Very good. Okay, let's have our class
Sir,
now.
murag ugkag no nagdalapel.
Nag-effort gid ba ako order sa Shopee? Palang sa inyo. Hello, Des. Okay. Share screen. Perfecto. Okay, so you can see what's on the screen now online. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay, good.
sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
good. We're set. Now, our topic this morning is understanding sexual harassment. How do you understand sexual harassment? Okay. How do you understand sexual harassment? You're harassing someone. So meaning it's what? It's physical. Physical. When you say
Pwede
sexual
man siguro
harassment, it's physical.
sir, di ba pwede man po verbal
Physical and
harassment, sir?
emotional. What else? Psychological.
Verbal.
Verbal, sir. Verbal.
Now, our lesson objectives for study today is to understand fully the various rhetorical perspectives on sexual harassment. So there are theories on sexual harassment. It is not just a word by itself, but it is founded upon theories. So we will be learning about theories on sexual harassment. We'll be distinguishing these various theoretical perspectives on sexual harassment. So we'll be able to have a fuller view of what sexual harassment is, and to understand the laws of the Philippines on sexual harassment in the academe and in the workplace. So we also have laws that have been stipulated on what sexual harassment means. All right. Ay, ato sa ning kinsa mo to nagsulat? Ato sang ano ha?
Si Johan, sir.
Stop share. Kay magawas na sa recording. Okay. Where are we now? Huh? What happened? Okay. Hindi lang. So as I said, okay, di na ako magsulat-sulat sa ano ha, yung screen, kay makita na sa recording. So we have this term such as sexual harassment. It is an act or a series of acts involving any unwelcome sexual advance, request, or demand for sexual favor. So it is an act or series of acts that demands sexual favor. Can you still hear me online? My voice clear?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
very good. All right, let's continue. Or other verbal or physical behaviors. It is not just contained into physical, okay, harassment, but it is also verbal harassment committed by a government employee or official in a work-related training or education-related environment. Usually, it happens in the workplace. It happens in the educational sector, in the offices, in a related environment where someone has control or dominant over another person. Okay, now, uh, harassment and sexual harassment are recognized as a form of discrimination. Okay, it is a form of discrimination on the grounds of sex and thus are contrary to the principle of equal treatment between men and women. So sexual harassment is not just contained, as I said, into physical harassment, but it is also in the sphere of inequality or discrimination between sexes, male and female. And International Labor Organization defines sexual harassment as a sex-based behavior that is unwelcome and offensive to the recipient. Okay? So it is a behavior that is unwelcome, something that you don't like, something that you do not commend, or offensive to the other person. Like many other crimes, sexual harassment is all about power, it's about control, it's about domination. When someone, perhaps who is higher than you, who is in power, who is in control of you, then you are powerless. Thus, sexual harassment is not merely a problem of safety and health and unacceptable working conditions, but it is also a form of violence primarily against women. And most of the time, it happens against women. Now, so Republic Act 787, or the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, defines work education or training related sexual harassment is committed by an empower employee, manager, supervisor, professor, coach, trainer, or any other person who having authority, influence, or moral ascendancy over another in a work or training or education environment, demands, requests, or otherwise requires any sexual favor from the other, regardless of whether the demand, request, or requirement for submission by the object of the said act. So it is usually committed by those people who are in power, having authority or influence or moral ascendancy. It is a request for sexual favor, regardless of the demand, whatever it is. Okay? Now, we have this theoretical perspective of sexual harassment. So sexual harassment cannot be understood in just one single theory. So we have various theories to be able to analyze, to be able to understand what sexual harassment is. But it is always a combination, of I said, of different predictors. There are different predictors, norms, why this is happening. So previous researchers have looked at sexual harassment at a number of different frameworks, okay? Including organizational approach. We have the feminist theory, role theory, attributional models of sexual harassment. However, all of these models can be labeled as, these are cultural, what do you call this? Cultural, sociocultural models of sexual harassment. And there have been 5 widely accepted theories of sexual harassment. So this morning we will be taking a look at these 5 different theories on sexual harassment and to explain the phenomenon from this point of view, from these different angles, from these different perspectives. Now to it, let us start. Number 1, natural or biological theory. Okay? So we have natural and biological theory. Now according to this model, men have stronger sex drives and are therefore biologically motivated to engage pursuit of women. So since men, according to this theory, since men biologically have a stronger sex drives, then therefore it is normal for them to pursue women. Thus, the harassing behavior is not meant to be offensive or discriminatory, but it is merely the result of biological urges. So from this theory, it is just normal for men to attempt to harass women because it just comes out naturally because of their biological framework, men as they are, from this theory. So its assumptions include natural mutual attraction between men and women, a stronger male sex drive, a male as a role of sexual initiators. So the key strength of the natural biological perspective is that it acknowledges the innate instinct, potentially driving sexually aggressive behavior. So there is this innate instinct. In the Bible, we call this our carnal nature. Okay, technical term for that. So we have this carnal nature, our fallen nature. So that's natural biological theory. Second, we have sex role spillover theory. What is this? So this theory is based on the proposition of irrelevant gender-based role expectations that individuals bring to the workplace in guiding their interactions with women. Men hold role perceptions of women based on their traditional role in our culture. So we have this accepted, lingering role of sexes in our environment. So when women takes jobs outside of the traditional areas of work in the male-dominated workplace, men rely on these gender-based expectations when interacting with women, therefore perceiving women in their gender role over and above their work role. So usually in the work environment, it is most of the time it is male dominated. So since male dominated, male would look upon themselves as more dominant than their female counterpart. It should be a colleague, it should be a counterpart, not they are above them. Therefore, men are more likely to sexualize their experience, including work experience, and are therefore more likely to make sexual remark or engage in sexualized behavior since they think that they are higher, they are above, so they can just do whatever they want with this. We call this below the belt comments. Thus accounting for the fact that women experience more sexual harassment than men. So usually women experiences more of this harassment than men because of how our work environment is. And third, organizational theory. Proponents of this theory propose that one of the central concepts that helps explain sexual harassment is power. This theory proposes that sexual harassment results from opportunities presented by power and authority relations which derive from hierarchical structure organization. So our organization has its this structure, hierarchical structure. This perspective emphasizes the structure of our organizational hierarchy invests in power in certain individuals over others that can lead to abuse. Sometimes was this bosses or those who are in the higher ups, this or those who are above, they will ask for favor in return of something. There is no promotion for you if you will not, you know, engage to this, if you will not say yes to my favor. Thus sexual harassment is all about expression of male power over women that sustains patriarchal relations. So we have this organizational theory, the hierarchical theory, power and domination. And lastly, we have sociocultural theory. It examines the wider social and political context in which sexual harassment is created and occurs. According to this perspective, sexual harassment is what logical consequence of the gender inequality and sexism that already exists in the society. So according to this theory, it is just normal because it is a logical consequence of there's already this gender inequality in our in our environment, in our culture. And this theory asserts that women have lesser status in a largely dominated workplace, male dominance workplace. So sexual harassment is only one manifestation of a much larger patriarchal system. You know, patriarchal, right? When was this father or male are the dominating entity. The perpetrators of sexual harassment have no regard for women as equal human beings. Therefore, molesting women is part and parcel of male idea of fun in the society. So this is what is happening. Okay. Now, lastly, feminist theory. According to feminist perspective, sexual harassment is linked to sexist male ideology of male dominance and male superiority in the society. Therefore, feminist theorists view sexual harassment as a product of gender system maintained by dominant normative form of masculinity. So according to feminist theory, this is a byproduct of of a gender system wherein male is considered as a dominant entity. The sexual harassment exists because of the views of women as inferior sex, but also sexual harassment serves to maintain the already existing gender stratification. Stratification is division among gender. By emphasizing sexual expectation wherein for this theory, women is inferior. Now, relevance of these harassment theories. Now, therefore, an interpretation of this theoretical perspective reveals that both biologically as well as socioculturally, men happen to have always occupied a dominant position over women in societies, of which the workplace are only a part. So considerable data have been accumulated confirming that harassment is widespread. Okay? Harassment is widespread in both public and private sectors. and it had been a significant consequence for the employee's health and psychological well-being. So this is happening. So that's why we are learning this, because this is happening in the educational sector, in the workplace. So we should know this. Now, therefore, the vulnerability of women as a weaker sex has traveled towards workplace and academe, where it is considered natural and normal for men to be responding sexually towards women as colleagues, subordinates, and superiors. So this is happening, and that's why we are learning this, so that we will be able to, to prevent this from happening. Some of you may become bosses later on. Okay, so we should know this. Now, there are Philippine laws on sexual harassment. Republic Act number 87877, or the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, is the governing law for work, education, or training related to sexual harassment. What does it say? I'd like to read this. Specifically, in work-related or environment, employment, sexual harassment is committed when, number one, the sexual favor is made as a condition in the hiring or the employment. Okay, during hiring, during employment, of course, was this you are wanting to get employed, so the employer would ask for a sexual advance, and this is very, very much wrong and immoral. Reemployment of said individual or gaining said individual favorable compensation, terms of conditions, promotion, privileges, refusal to grant sexual favor results in limiting, segregating, classifying the employees which in any way would discriminate, deprive, or diminish employment opportunities or otherwise adversely affect said employee. So this had been happening, but then we have laws to be able to protect their rights and privileges to prevent this from happening. The second, the above acts would impair the employee's rights or privileges under existing, we have labor laws. Okay? So it would impair the rights and privileges of the individual. Then the above acts would result in what? Intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment for the employee. On the other hand, in education or training environment, sexual harassment is committed on. Okay, let's take a look at the educational sector. This one is work-related, workplace. This one is educational sector, against one who is under the care, custody, or supervision of the offender. So it is committed when someone is under the care or custody of, when you are the supervisor, you are the teacher. Against one whose education training, apprenticeship, or tutorship is entrusted to the offender. Third, when sexual favor is made a condition to the giving of passing grade, granting honors or scholarship, payment or stipend, allowance or benefits, privileges or consideration. So asking for sexual favor in return of what? Passing grade, granting honors, this and that. So when the sexual advance result in an intimidating, hostile environment, offensive environment for the student, trainee, or apprentice. Okay. So sexual harassment in the civil service is punishable by Civil Service Commission number 010940, known as Administrative Disciplinary Rules on Sexual Harassment cases. So we have this stipulation. It is committed at the following places. Number one, in the premise of the workplace or office of school or institution, in any place where the parties were found as a result of work or education, training, responsibilities, or relations, at work, education, training, related social functions. So you have institutions, social functions, okay, trainings, while official business outside the school or office or training institution, or during work, school or training related travel, an official conference, symposia, or training session by telephone, cellular phone, usually fax machine, or electronic mail. So this is committed at these following places under this jurisdiction. So the following forms of sexual harassment are committed through: one, physical, malicious touching, overt sexual advance, gestures with lewd insinuation, verbal requests or demands for sexual behavior. You have these lurid remarks, use of objects, pictures, graphics, letters, or written notes with sexual underpinnings, and other forms analogous to the foregoing. To close, to summarize this first part, sexual harassment constitutes an extremely important was this kind of violence it had been existing and rampant in our country and also worldwide. So this complex concept consists of several theories and are punished by Philippine law. So we have specific law regarding this. So the Philippine laws on sexual harassment punishes work-related training, education, environment, sexual harassment. It can happen everywhere. Thereby, the acts of sexual harassment is also punishable by law. So it is good for us to be able to know this and to see the stipulations on this, that we may be able to prevent this from happening. And our last topic is women issues in development. So we talk about sexual harassment. Now let's close our lecture with women's issues. At the end of this course, we will be able to understand fully the principle, model, and concept of WID, WAG, and GAD. What are these? Distinguish these three from each other and determine the importance of these three to national development. So this module, this part, discusses three different distinctive models, explaining how this development affects women and why women are affected by development differently. So also this module discusses these practical approaches to the development. So these are development of women. All of these there are development. Okay? So definition of terms: development, the process in which someone or something grows or changes and becomes more advanced. I think all of us wants development. We are here, we are studying because we are wanting to have a positive change, to inflict a positive change, not just to us, but also to our environment, to contribute something to the community. That's why we want development. So there's this thought of women development. So this approach, development projects that emerged in the 1960s, calling for treatment of women's issues in the development project. So we have Women in Development, WID, emerged in 1960s, calling for treatment of women's issues, okay? 1960s, treatment of women's issues. And we have Women and Development. So we have Women in Development, rose from women's issues, treating women's issues in 1960s. And we have Women and Development, WID, WAD. So this approach comes from the perspective that equality will be essential to improving women's positions, but still frames changes in terms of providing women access to productive sector. So this comes from the perspective that equality would be given to everyone, especially for women. And lastly, gender and development. Developed in the 1980s, stepped away from both WID and WAD, and was founded in socialist feminist ideology. The GAD approach holds that oppression of women stems largely from neoliberal focus on improving women's reproductive and productive capacities. Let's start. Women in development. So by 1970s, it becomes clear that women were left out in the development. So where they were not benefiting significantly from it, and in some instances, their existing status and positions are worsened by the development. Of course, we have development in our country, in our environment, from different sectors of our development was this. But then, since there's inequality, so women are greatly affected by it. The women development approach this issue, so the exclusion of women from development program and approaches, because women are excluded that time. So they were wanting to have equality, where women may have the right, okay, to practice their rights and privileges. Women as a group that lacks opportunity to participate in the development. So the main task, therefore, was to improve women's access to resources and their participation in development. So this is the task, that women may be able to participate in the development. Women may be able to have their voices heard, okay? The WID approach emphasized the importance of integration of women into development programs and planning. This was the best way to improve women's position in the society. Of course, we are all equal, okay? And if you will not take heed upon this sector of our society, then it will be an imbalance, right? So, though this approach had limitations, the increased visibility of women in development issues. Women in Development was successful in helping secure a permanent place for women's issues at UN. And right now, just recently, we have the first women US Vice President, first African Asian women Vice President, Kamala Harris, right? just the recent election in the US. So the UN declared that the decade of 1975, 75 to 85 is a decade for women, according to UN. One of the major achievement of this decade was the establishment of women in development structure or machinery. So this was the year where women had gained a prominent place in the society, especially in the government. In Zambia, for instance, it was during this time that Women's League of the then ruling political party, United Nations Independence, was formed as the national machinery to address women's development issues. So next we have women and development. So first we have women in development, then women and development. As a result of the criticism of the WID approach, we have the WAD, arose in the latter part of 1970s, okay? Adopting a Marxist feminist approach, the main argument is that women had always been part, okay? Women had not been, taken away or had been excluded, but from the onshore, from the very beginning, women had been a part of this development process. WAD asserts that women had always been played an important part in economic actions. So the work they do both inside and outside household is critical to the maintenance of the society. Outside, inside the household is critical to the development of our society. However, this integration has only served to sustain global inequalities. In other words, the WID approach that places emphasis on integrating women into development was not correct. So for the WID approach was incorrect because women from the very beginning had been influential, okay, in how the society developed. From what they do inside the house or outside the household. So the main focus of WAD is the interaction between women and development processes rather than purely strategies to integrate women. So it is not integrating women because for them, for the WAD, women had already been integrated in the development for the society. So what is important for them is the interaction because women had already been integrated to the development process. So WAD is interested with the interaction of women and the development process. Should you get that point? So the WAD saw both women and men as not benefiting from global economic structures because of the disadvantages due to class and the way wealth is distributed. So for the WAD, both sexes don't really have are not benefiting from this global because we have different structures of the economic stratification of our environment. The wealthy are getting wealthier, the poor are getting poorer. So WAD argued that the integration of women into development was to their disadvantage and only made their inequality worse. WAD saw global inequality as the main problem facing poor countries and citizens of those countries. So for this theory, for this was this development, global inequalities is the reason why countries are getting poor. Okay, and countries are suffering. So on the other hand, WAD has been criticized for assuming the position of women will improve when international structures becomes more inequitable. And gender and development, you have the JD. So we have discussed already the WID, WAD. Now let's discuss the GAD lastly. In the 1980s, further reflections on the development experience of women gave rise to gender and development. It brought together both lessons learned from the limitations of the WID and WAD approaches. So we'll take a look. GAD was developed out of these two approaches, the WID and the WAD. So what are their limitations? Okay, so this is discussed by the GAD. It stems out from the limitations given by the WID and WAD. So the GAD looks at the impact of development on both men and women. So it does not only look at women, but takes look at both sexes. What is their impact to the development, both men and women? It seeks to ensure both men and women participate equally. They equally benefit from development and so emphasize the equality of benefit and control. So the emphasis of the emphasis of the GAD is equality of benefit and control for both sexes. So it recognizes that women may be involved in development, but not necessarily benefit from it. So the GAD is not concerned with women exclusively, but with a way in which gender relations allot specific roles, responsibilities, and expectations between men and women, often the detriment of women. So yeah, sometimes this is happening, right? The expectations between men and women, and these expectations looks at, it's not beneficial for women. We have 10 minutes more. So this approach also pays particular attention to the oppression of women in the family or private sphere. As a result, we have seen projects develop addressing issues. Okay. So the GAD focuses on social or gender relations, the division of labor between men and women in society, to address issues of access and control over power and resource. So this is all about, sometimes in our environment, we have availability of power and resources, but yet because of inequality, so the sexes are hampered or affected. Now, GAD goes further than the other approaches in emphasizing that both the reproductive and productive role of women argues that it is the state's responsibility to support, okay? So GAD was this, proponents would say that it is the state's responsibility, the government responsibility to support, okay, the equality and the rights and privileges of women. As such, it treats development as a complex process that is influenced by political, social, and economic factors. So for the GAD, development processes, there are several factors that affects its development processes: political, for social, economic factors, rather than just state or stage of development. So we have these approaches. Number one, welfare approach. Practical approaches to, running out of time. Practical approachment to the development of, what's this, women. We have the welfare approach. The assumptions that women's position would improve together with general improvements in economy or economic positions of their husbands began to be challenged as it became clear that women were in fact losing out. So this talks about the economy, where women's position, since it is the husband, the patriarch, who is controlling the resources of the family, so women is affected. As a result, we're being increasingly associated with backwardness and traditional, while men were increasingly identified with modern. So with this welfare approach, it's this approach, looked at women as being traditional and backward, while men are modern and progressive. So this is the welfare approach. So this is what stems out from this approach. Second, the equity approach. So you have the welfare approach, and you have the equity approach. In contrast to the welfare approach, so women as active participants in organizing to bring out about necessary change. For welfare approach, women are passive. They're backwards, okay? They do not take part in the development of the society. But yet, for equity approach, women are participants in organizing to bring about change. So the main aim of which is to eliminate discrimination, revaluing of women's contribution to the society. It dealt with both productive and reproductive role as responsibility of government. So then you have the anti-poverty approach, focuses on both the productive and reproductive role of women, with an emphasis on satisfaction of basic needs and productivity of women. So the key operational strategy required access to income generation and wage employment. The tendency with this approach was to reinforce the basic needs and ignore the strategic needs of women. So the anti-poverty approach, sometimes, the danger of this is just to look at the needs of the community, okay, the basic needs, and tend to neglect the strategic needs of women. Lastly, the efficiency approach aims to have increased production and economic growth with an emphasis on full use of human resources. So the advocate of this approach argue that gender analysis makes good economic sense. This is because understanding women's role and men's role as part of planning of development activities help improve effectiveness and ensures that women as well as men can play their part in national development. So the efficiency approach is quite good because it takes a look deeper at the responsibilities of men and women, how they can take part in the development of the society. Okay? This approach succeeded in bringing the concerns about women and gender into the mainstream development. So this does not only stratify men and women, but then it brings them into the mainstream. This was done with a focus on what women could do for the development rather than on what women could do for women, or what rather development could do for women. So this focus takes a look at what women can do for the development, not what the development can do for the women. So you get the point now? So this approach takes a look at that, what women can do for the development, not the other thing around. So the aim of empowerment approach is to increase self-reliance of women and to influence change at the policy, legislative, societal, economic, and other levels to their advantage. Its main strategy is awareness raising and situates women firmly as active participants in ensuring change that takes place. So this is to women empowerment. Women empowerment is to raise awareness, okay, that women can take part in what's this the development of the society. It's been instrumental in ensuring that opportunities are not only open for men but also for women to determine their own needs. However, empowerment has often been misunderstood to be an end rather than means. This has resulted in poor women becoming very knowledgeable about issues while realizing little change to their material situation, which is often dire. So, women empowerment is take a look at the needs of women in the environment and how they can take part in the process of developing the society. We have 3 more minutes. Let's end now. So you have the WID, Women in Development, WAD, Women and Development, and you have JAD, Gender and Development. This evolved towards achieving women empowerment since the mid-19th century and up to the present. So aside from that, several practical approaches had been utilized to underscore the role of women in building the nation and vice versa. It is not what the development can do for women, but what the women can do for the development of the nation. So the evolution of these theories and approaches only state that women empowerment is a developing principle alongside the development of our society and the development of our country. Okay, so that ends our discussion this morning. Do you have any other concerns before we will close our class?
Sir,
Any other concerns,
question.
everybody?
Sir, question.
Yeah, question.
Sir, regarding ni siya sa first topic, sir, ha? If ever,
Regarding
di
sa
ba,
first
sir,
topic.
kung, gawa
Okay,
mo
go.
na topic, sir. If, regarding, for example, sir, ba, di ba, naamay tayo ginaingon, sir, na pag ang babae ko tahay, if ang babae daw, sir, ginakulata, or something, or kanang gina-abuse, it's considered as offendable for law. But what if, sir, vice versa, ang lalaki ang gina-abuse? Nalagi time, sir, dili gapon gina-consider as abuse na siya, sir.
I think kung ang lalaki gina-abuse, the same is true. Okay? Kung ang vice versa, ang lalaki gina-abuse, so the same is true. But then, tungod mangod sa ato ang tungod sa ato ang norm sa society nga ang nakita normally sa atong society is that ang women lang ang gina-abuse, but then kung ang men ang gina-abuse, so the same. Okay? What's this? It is the same. It applies. It also applies when men are abused. Okay, the same is true. All right. Oh yeah, of course. Sexual harassment is also applicable to men, not just for women. It's a vice versa. Okay. But it's very rare. It's quite rare. It always happens with women, especially to those who are in the power dominant was this environment. Okay, so we are almost to end. Let us pray now. Okay, hapit na mag-end ang recording. Let us pray, everybody. Dear Lord, we thank thee for this blessed morning as the students will continue with the study this week. Continue to be with them. Bless them, their Father, always. Bless their parents. They continue to support them. May joy, love, and understanding be always in us, that they could be a great blessing to the people around. Thank you so much, Father, for being with us the rest of the day. This we ask in the loving name of Jesus Christ, we pray, amen. Thank you, everybody, for coming to class. Okay, let's end now. God bless everyone.